morning.
Good morning.
And you are?
Chris.
Hi, Chris. I'm Mary Kay. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What brings you here today?
I have a little bit of problem knowing what to do when I get really angry.
Okay.
You want an example?
Yeah. Kind of expand on that just a bit.
Like if I get in a fight with my roommate and it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it escalates, and when it does, there's times I can walk away, but usually what ends up happening is when things really get revved up, I have this anxiety. It makes me want to just like leave, and I do leave. I may leave the apartment, or I may go into another room. The only problem with that is that my roommate will say something along the lines of, yeah, walk away, just walk away, you always walk away. Even though we do eventually come back and talk about it. But when I get really, really angry, I don't really know how to handle it outside of walking away.
So you've come here today to talk a little bit about your anger and your anxiety that you feel when you get this anger going on.
Right.
And you want to, it's gotten to the point now you want to see about doing something about it. Okay? Okay, so we'll go back to that issue.
Okay.
I'd like to spend just a little bit of time talking about, since this is our first session, about what our sessions are going to look like when you come, okay? Maybe get a little bit of idea about where you're at right now, what your mood is, let's say right this minute. Tell me a little bit about your mood right now. Say, if I were to say between 1 and 10, tell me a little bit about your mood for the past week.
Maybe I would say maybe about a 4 or 5 if we're talking about anxiety.
Okay, anxiety, anger. Okay, so we're going to put that kind of over here. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. Excuse me, when we talk about your anger issue. The other thing I'd like to go over is what our agenda would be for today, okay? And I'd like to do that every time that you would come to see me. So there's some things I'd like to have on the agenda, and I'm sure there's some things you'd like on the agenda. A couple of things I'd like to talk about are what kind of therapy that we'd be using and what that looks like, how often you might be coming to therapy, and maybe a little bit about how we work through the therapy, what your issues are and what I see, and maybe what kind of homework that I might be giving you, and if that kind of homework or assignments, whatever you want to call them, if those would be okay with you, and a little bit of feedback about what I see, and then see if you have any suggestions for what we'd like for the agenda today. Do you have any ideas?
Not really. I don't really know where to begin, quite
Okay.
honestly.
Well, you might think of some as we go on. Now, some other things I'd like to talk about a little bit about the kind of therapy that I like to do. It's called, big words, cognitive behavioral therapy. It sounds like a lot, but it's very simple. It's about how your thoughts really are automatic and how they create your behavior. How your thoughts have a lot to do with your feelings and your emotions and how they create your behavior. We're going to talk a lot about how a lot of those are automatic. They just pop up, and how you don't even, they just kind of pop in your mind, and what you're thinking when they pop in your mind, and how you're feeling when those happen, and what kind of behavior you're having. We're going to look at maybe the ways we can change some of that. So maybe we can change some of those negative thoughts that you have into positive thoughts, and how that maybe can change your behavior. So that when whatever happened, when you become angry and start to have that anxiety with your roommate. What happens before that? What makes you feel anxious? And ways that you can deal with that. Okay? Does that sound good? So that's kind of the type of therapy that we'll be using. Like I said, big words, very simple process, but it's going to involve you doing some work. And that's where we get to the homework. Now, homework, I know, school, that kind of thing. We can call it assignments, we can call it journaling, we can call it whatever you want to call it. But what it's going to do is it's going to help you in between sessions kind of work on some of the things we've talked about, so you can kind of get a grasp of, oh, so that's what she was talking about. Oh, now I see. That's where that's coming from. Oh, here I go again. I'm thinking that same thought, and now I'm having that behavior and putting two and two together. So as we go through things, doing your homework or your assignment, it's going to help you understand a little bit better your behavior and where it comes from. Because right now it's so automatic, you don't even realize you're doing it. Some of the other things that you might want to know about is, how long am I going to be here? How long am I going to be in therapy? I can't say today how long that's going to take, but I would say an average time is anywhere from 4 to maybe 12 or 14 sessions, depending on how well you do, depending on how your assignments go and how we're getting along. So each time we'll review and we'll go through that, okay? Every time we meet, we'll do the same thing. We'll set an agenda. It's likely next week you'll have some more things on your agenda. Today you've added on your agenda, let's talk about my anxiety and my anger issue with my roommate. Next week you might come in and you'll say, oh, I've got this thing I want to talk about. Or I've done my homework but I didn't understand X, Y, and Z. Next week you might have something else you want to talk about. So we'll kind of summarize what we've talked about a little bit here and there throughout the session. At the end we'll summarize a little bit more, give you more assignments, and then I'll get some feedback from you on how things are going. And then we'll set the next appointment. Does that kind of sound okay to you?
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds good.
So let's go back a little bit to what brought you here today. So what I heard you saying earlier was that a lot of times you find yourself having a problem with your anger with your roommate. Something happens, you become angry, but you also become very anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get that feeling, you just feel like, I just have to leave. I just have to leave the room. And tell me why you feel like you have to leave the room.
I don't really know. I guess that's the only thing that seems to satisfy my anxiety. And of course I say that, but when I leave the room, it's not like my thoughts aren't still racing about the discussion we just had. So really walking away doesn't necessarily reduce my anxiety, but it does hopefully give me a little distance. But quite honestly, I don't feel like I know how to fight, if you know what I mean.
Okay. So are you able to think about right now, go back to that time, the last time
Mm-hmm.
that you had this fight or these feelings, and think about what exactly was going through your mind. What just went through your mind when you thought, I gotta get out of here, I have to leave?
I don't know. I'm a whole lot more in touch with my feelings than what I'm thinking behind
Right.
it.
And see, what I'd like to help you learn is that what you're thinking has a lot to do with your feelings, but it's what you're thinking that creates those thoughts and feelings that creates that behavior. So maybe through this week, if you could write down, when you start to have those feelings of, I gotta get out of here, take a moment and write down what just went through my mind, and And then maybe we'll begin to see a pattern of what's going through your mind before you get that thought about your anxiety and you have to leave the room. And that might begin to help us see what it is that's going on with you, that because you said, I don't know why I have to leave the room. And until we can figure out what you're thinking, what's going through your mind, we can't really begin to explore that.
Mhm.
So we've kind of run out of time for today, but I want to kind of summarize that what we're going to do is work on some anxiety issues surrounding some anger issues, the anxiety you're having with some anger issues, maybe around your roommate, and you like to come here and work on those, and that we're not really sure how long you're going to be coming, but that you're willing to do some homework in between sessions and maybe work on writing down what your thoughts are when you have these feelings coming up, and that you'd be willing, maybe I think you should probably come at least once a week for the first maybe month. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So did I miss anything in there in terms of summarizing?
No?
How about some feedback from you on how it went today?
I feel kind of hopeful,
Okay.
you
Okay.
know, based on what you said. If that formula really works, then hopefully if you can help me figure out, or I can figure out, or what the thoughts are, then maybe that can change. Maybe fighting could look different.
Good. Good.
So,
Okay, good. Well, then I will see you again next week.
okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.